Welcome back, chess fans, to another episode of the C-Squared podcast. Today we have a very special guest once again for round two with us, the one and only Grandmaster Maurice Ashley. Maurice is not only a renowned chess grandmaster, but also a brilliant commentator that we all miss so much on the circuit, and an educator, as well as more recently a celebrated author. So Maurice, welcome back to the pod.
Thank you so much for having me back. It's always good to be with you fellas. And yeah, I miss you guys.
We definitely do as well. Tell us a bit about what you've been doing. I mean, the last time we chatted was in St. Louis, just before, I believe, Fabi won the US Championship. Is that correct, Fabi?
The last time,
yeah, I think that's right.
Off the record, or because we did the podcast in 2022, right?
Yes.
The last time, but we've seen each other in between that.
We have
quite a few times.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. How's life? How's life treating you, Maurice?
Life is good, man. I can't complain. You know, I made this big decision to stop doing commentary and go in a different direction in my life, and so it's mainly been about content creation. So I've done a bunch of chessable videos. I'm actually going to be doing 3 more quite soon in Barcelona. And I wrote a couple of books. I actually wrote 3 books. 2 of them got published. The other one is now being illustrated because it's going to be a graphic novel. And so that one's not coming out for a couple of years, actually, because it just takes a long time for this process to work. Doing corporate speeches. I just did my first commencement speech, which was really cool.
That's exciting.
To graduates at Western Governors University. That was fun. That was just, check on the bucket list. So yeah, I've been busy, definitely.
Was that difficult for you? The commencement speech? Always, whenever you do something for the first time, it's you get the butterflies, I guess. Did you get those?
I definitely had butterflies for this one. Big audience like that, all those graduates. You want to say some inspiring words, get them all psyched up. But I definitely had a nice story talking about my mother and her journey and how she impacted us, her 3 children. And I hear people responded very well, maybe even had some tears in the house. So I feel like I did a good job.
That's not bad. Fabi?
Yeah, I'm actually curious because you're so experienced in terms of speaking, both in a commentary role, but also in terms of giving speeches or addressing a large group of people, or perhaps educating people on chess. And like for me, it's terrifying. It's not even that I'm like terrible at it necessarily. I don't really know, but I'm just terrified of it. But so I'm curious if you still feel that, like, I don't know if fear is the right word, but that apprehension or anticipation coming into like giving a speech, or at this point it's just like normal routine and you kind of have it down and all that.
Well, I mean, usually if I'm in front of a camera, it's super easy, right? Like you just talk and you don't really see a bunch of people necessarily. But whenever there's an audience, whenever there's a big live audience, it's different because you can actually gauge their reaction to what you're saying, because they're just right there. And even though I've done it many times, the audiences vary. And in this case, it's a graduating class. You're trying to say things that they're going to remember, they're going to walk away from feeling inspired, and you don't want to lay an egg. And so, I had the speech carefully written out. We had the teleprompters. The other thing that I had too was I had the robe on, like the robe and the tam. So I had that look like almost like a PhD, professor or dean or something. I'd never done that before. So that was pretty cool, getting the get up and doing the speech from the stage. And so, yeah, I definitely had a few butterflies going in. I really wanted to nail this one. And I actually gave 2 speeches on the same day to 2 different graduating classes from the same university. So the first one was a little bit of butterflies. The second one, I pretty much was like, okay, I got it done. I'm in this. So I felt okay.
That's actually quite interesting that you say that. Does the size of the audience matters? And after that, I will ask you about the camera as well, because you've been kind of in the commentary role that I've been doing for by now 8 years. You kind of have been a mentor, yeah. And I've been following in the footsteps. But I have to say, for me, the butterflies are still there, not as intense as they were in the first few years. The first few years, I have to say, they were terrifying. But like year 7, year 8, and now I'm starting to kind of develop that pure confidence that everything is going to be all right. You know what I mean?
This is the thing. We're so concerned about ourselves, but the audience wants you to do well. Yeah. I think that's the most important thing to understand. The audience has shown up and they want you to do well. They are supportive. They're not hypercritical of everything you're going to say, at least the majority of the people who are there. There are some people who they're just going to hate, and there's nothing you can do about those people. But the majority of people who are there, they think you're the professional, you know your stuff, and if you do, just be yourself. And that's really that's all you can ever do. That's where the secret to handling pressure is you can't be better than yourself. It's who you are that day that's shown up to express your ideas, your thoughts, your preparation. And if you've done that, the rest is just straightforward. You just have to talk. And I think that, obviously you're a great commentator. Fabi, you're fantastic on camera, even though you're not trying to do anything extra, especially because you're not trying to do anything extra, you're just being yourself. And I think that's really the secret. You just be you. And then people will engage. Some people won't like your style. Again, nothing to do about that. But the vast majority of folks are there listening to you and wanting you to do well and hoping that they'll be enlightened because they're really concerned about themselves. They want to get some information themselves. So I think that's the real secret whenever we're in those kind of settings, is to recognize that the audience is supportive and they just want to take a nugget or two away that they can maybe use to help benefit their lives.
And one of the challenging things I found with commentary, and of course I'm not as experienced as you are by far, or as you are, Christian, but I have done a little bit. And one of the things I found really challenging is that I feel like if I'm going to speak in the way that, like, let's say we're having a conversation, I speak in this sort of manner, then it won't be enthusiastic enough. But I also don't want to ham it up to the point that I'm either saying meaningless words just to get more words in, or being overly not enthusiastic, but overly, like hyping it up a bit too much to the point that it feels artificial. And I've noticed a tendency to just, like, if I don't know exactly where my thought process is, to just start saying words, which later I'm like, what am I saying? These words have no meaning whatsoever. So that there's that, like, really fine balance, at least that I found. Maybe for you it feels more natural after so much experience and so much time as a presenter.
I think it does get much easier over time, but only when you become comfortable again with the fact that you are just going to say things that are okay. And in your case, I mean, you're one of the best players on the planet. I mean, number 2 on the planet. So people basically are ready to listen to anything you have to say. You're as authoritative as they come. And you're also not pretentious in any way. You're just speaking your mind, and your mind is pretty damn good. So whatever you say, it just comes across. And I think even, like, you can leave the hype to people like myself, because you don't have to hype anything. You just are yourself. You just talk, and people are going to be hanging on every word you have to say.
And actually, that kind of ties out to the next question that I had, and kind of to open up the conversation about the new book that you have behind you, Move by Move. Tell us a bit about that. And then you also wrote, there's a chapter in the book about endless learning. And I think this is something that Fabi is trying to kind of say as well, that, as a commentator, you're always looking to fine tune whatever, the way you communicate, right? And tell us a bit about that aspect of your profession, and how do you deal with that endless learning?
Well, first, the book itself, it's kind of funny, the story behind the book, because it's a book that I didn't plan to write at first. In fact, the book was offered to me by the publisher Chronicle as a book they wanted to have, which was a book on the wild and wacky world of chess. So they wanted funny stories. They wanted crazy personalities. We've got enough of that in the chess world. And they wanted me to write that book. And they said, it's a nice book where people can open up any page and just dip in and read some chapter or some nugget about the chess world. So I thought I could write that book. But as I tried to write the book, it simply refused to be written. It was just like, nope, not going to be written. This is not what you want to write about. And honestly, I missed a couple of deadlines being busy and trying to do this book. I had an outline all set, thought I could do it. But eventually, the editor looked at me and said, okay, you're clearly having trouble writing this book. What's going on? And I said, I feel like I don't want to write this book. It just refuses to be written. And she said, okay, what book do you want to write? And that just reframed everything. And the one that I really had in me was a book about the lessons that chess taught me over the years. So the lessons that I've gleaned from chess, my years playing, the thoughts I've had about it, how it impacted me as a person, and the kind of things I felt would be beneficial to other people that could show them just what the power of chess is. And so that's what the book is all about. The chapter you're talking about, Levels of Endless Learning, that's related to something, a story I tell about a conversation I had with Judith Polgar. And this was when she was number 8 in the world. She was obviously one of the top 10 players, but she was always losing or not doing well against the big three. It was Kramnik, Kasparov, and Anand. And her results were just not that great and frankly were poor. And I said to her, we were having a conversation in New York City when she was visiting. I said, what do you have to do to get to the next level so you can beat those guys? And she paused for a second. She said, first of all, you mean levels. And that extra S blew my mind. I was clearly not on her level or anywhere near for me to appreciate that she understood that there was a big gap between her at number 8 and them at numbers 1, 2, and 3. And, that gave me the idea like, wow, first of all, I'm nothing. That's clear. And I don't understand that level or levels, but that it's a story that never ends. You're always learning more about chess. It's just so vast. We don't know 1% of chess. People are blown, their minds are blown when I tell people that I'm an advanced beginner. I know so little about the game. There are people who know much better than I do. And even those people are really objectively not that good because the computer spanks all of us. So there's just more and more to learn. And we have to accept the fact that we're on a ladder that keeps getting higher.
Yeah, and from an educator point of view, you don't have that blind spot. But when you're in the heat of the battle, sometimes when you're a competitor, sometimes there is that blind spot. You don't know what is the next level. As an educator, as a coach, for example, it's much easier to spot those blind spots. Do you have any strategies to know what the next level is, to know what needs to be taken care of in this process? I think the bottom line is humility and continue to work. I don't think you worry about the next level. My question itself was a bad question. What you do is you just keep working and keep plugging away and keep exploring your weaknesses and just getting better and better and more knowledgeable. And soon the next level will arrive. I think we all went through all those levels when we were trying to get better and get to the grandmaster level. It's just the work. You put in the work. A lot of people worry about rating. The fixation with rating is like one of the worst fixations in all of chess. Like it's just horrible because people are always, how do I get my rating up? What do I need to do to get from 2000 to 2100? From 2100 to 2200? Like, you know what you need to do? Stop caring about rating and do the work. That's impossible, Maurice. We're chess players. We care about rating.
Look, you can care all you want. Nothing's going to change unless you do the work. Nothing's going to change unless you do the work. Pure and simple. You can try to jimmy your rating, trick your way into a higher rating. You win a game and your rating goes up, and then you lose, your rating goes down. What does that mean? It means nothing. Nothing's going to change unless you do the work. You cannot just become a GM. It's just like, I'm just going to jimmy it. No, you have to be a GM. You have to be a GM to become a GM. That's actually one of the chapters in my book as well. You cannot become anything unless you're already that thing, right? You're not going to attain this level. You're just going to walk in and somehow, as you're in the middle of the game, you're going to these games, you're going to magically become that level. No, that's not what happens. What happens is you put in all the work beforehand, you train beforehand, you lose all those games beforehand, you inspect all your mistakes beforehand, you study, you get tougher, you think about the things that you do wrong and all the things you do right, you refine your entire process. And at some point along the journey, the level shift happens. And it might take 6 months, it might take a year, it might take a year and a half, but it's not going to happen in the middle of the game. It's going to happen because of all the work you put in beforehand. And so fixating on your rating, if you're actually a 2200, it's because you did all the work. It'll show in your games. If you're actually 2500, you're actually 2800, all that's going to show after you've already done the work that gets you to that level.
On the other hand, I think that the goals are helpful to us. It's just human nature that if I were to tell you to work on chess, but you'll never play a single game of chess in your life, then you'd say, what's the point? But if I told you that your goal is to reach this certain point, if you have like a clear goal in mind, then you focus on the work and you know I'll put the work in and then I'll achieve my goal. Whether your goal is to win a tournament or to become a certain level, I think that you're absolutely correct that people fixate too much on ratings and then they're scared that they'll lose their rating and they sabotage themselves by trying to like keep their rating and not thinking about the larger picture, as you mentioned, of improving. But if you have a series of goals and then you take them step by step and you work towards them, I think that can be a very, very helpful thing for everyone. I'm just thinking back on my own experience, my own chess career, and how goals have pushed me forward and how lack of motivation has also at times kept me back.
I agree with you 100%. I think goals are extremely important. That's a difference. It's a difference between having a goal and fixating on your rating, right? Your goal can be this thing that you are working towards, but you're working towards it without trying to fixate too much on the intermediate steps or the steps along the way that are these benchmarks when you talk about your rating, right? Oh, if I want to be a 2200, first I have to be a 2125, and then I'm going to be a 2150, and then I'm going to be a 2175. Oh no, I dropped down again. Oh no, I got to work and pull it back up. No, your goal is the big goal that you want to focus on, and whatever. Even as you talk about the incremental steps along the way, as you have maybe an even ultimate goal, but that goal doesn't mean that in order to attain that goal, you still have to put in all the work to get there. And that's really the bottom line. It's the work you have to put in to get there. So you should have goals. We're humans. We are motivated by those goals, but you shouldn't fixate on things like ratings and those kind of numbers because it will come. The goal will come if you put in the work.
At the same time, it's almost like a very specific mindset that not a lot of people actually have. This mindset of continuous growth.